Hi, and welcome to Letitia Collins Historical Lesson Timeline. Starting off with World History Timeline. As you know, your history is a huge part of your culture and who you are and where your family is from. So I created this lesson to teach you about a lot of different types of cultures and how history began and the beginning of time, how we kind of got to where we are now and why it's important. So, starting off, we're going to start off with World History Timeline and where that came about. So, World History Timeline started off in 1819 to 1881. And that was the use of timelines in the study and teaching of world history was pioneered by the German scholar Karl Platz, who in 1863 published his famous Alton Newton. This work appeared in English edition, was reissued in 1915. So that's just a little history about timelines and how they came about. Then we go down to 8000 BC rock art painting in Africa. This sand rock painting shows a rain animal in plum and white colors. Sand communities believed that rain animals had to be captured and slaughtered by shamans in order to bring rain in Africa. So that is a huge factor of how some of the first known man was known to be in Africa around this time. Then in 3332 BC, that was the first date on the Mayan calendar. Only 4 Mayan manuscripts still exist worldwide, of which the oldest and best preserved is the Dresden Codex, held in the collections of the Saxon State University Library. The manuscript was purchased for the Dresden Court Library in 1639 in Vienna as a Mexican book. To move on a little further, in 31,000 BC, King Menes founds Memphis as capital of Egypt. So this is Egypt founded. When Napoleon Bonaparte invaded Egypt in 1798, he brought with him an entourage of more than 160 scholars and scientists, known as the French Commission on the Science and Arts of Egypt. These experts undertook an extensive survey of the country's archaeology and natural history. So this was a really serious time for Egypt. They lost a lot of things during this time, during this invasion. Religion was one, since the African Cathedral Church is known to be the first known cathedral church. But the Romans think different. They made their church into the Roman Church, and they say that that church is the first known church to man. So you can see where a lot of things come into confusion and play around this time. The Egyptians lost a lot of valuable and sacred things to them, and their Bible was one of them. Now, this time, the Bible is translated in so many different ways in so many different religions, but the African Cathedral Church, which was a Christian-based church, was the first church known, and that was based off of Christianity that they received from the Middle East. So to move on further, in 1240 BC, that is on our timeline here, Moses gives the Ten Commandments to the Jewish people. This small volume from the Bavarian State Library contains depictions of 12 prophets of the Old Testament: Jeremiah, Moses, Zechariah, Ezekiel, Hosea, Isaiah, David, Amos, Jonah, Micah, Daniel, and Joel. Monumental with command and demeanor fitting their functions as seers and admonitors. The prophets appear in the wide, close following amplify around them, and the drums, which are crafted in ink with great verve, with spiritual expressions on their face. They seem to stare at the spectator. So around 1240 BC, when Moses gives the Ten Commandments to the Jewish people were very confused. They were so set in their ways. They've learned a lot of stuff from the Egyptian culture, so that was how they lived. The Jewish weren't trying to change their ways of thinking and their comfortability of their culture. So when Moses came giving the Ten Commandments to the Jewish people, they thought that he was trying to take over and take control, when in all reality, if you remember the story, spiritually, he's just following the path that God put him on to put the Jewish people on the right path. And a lot of times, people have to learn the hard way when they don't want to listen to God's ways and his path. So at that time, Jewish people had to learn the hard way. Going further, in 700 BC, over here on our timeline, Native Americans build large mounds for burial places and use as temples. Early in the 19th century, as wagon trains streamed into the Ohio and Mississippi valleys, settlers came upon vast numbers of abandoned earthworks that they attributed to sophisticated race of long-gone mound builders, giving rise to often loaded questions about human origins. The mounds and the artifacts found within them became the focus of early American efforts towards a science of archaeology. So, around this time, it says they build mounds for burial places and use as temples. Now, if you go back to Adam and Eve, we weren't supposed to die. We were supposed to always live. And Adam and Eve had everything they can possibly ever think of wanting, but they just couldn't have that one thing, which was that knowledge and wisdom from the wisdom tree. And us humans and us men just want more and more and more. And if we can't have something, we just go after it, or somebody convinces us that it might be a good idea to go after it. So that's what they did. And now we, as a race of men, have to suffer for those decisions, because now we have to die. Women have to have cycles and go through pain, and we have to feel pain and things like that. So it's consequences of our actions as a man race. And now the Native Americans noticed that a lot of people who were dying weren't having proper burial, so they wanted to make proper burial for them, and they wanted to build temples to worship God and give our thanks and kind of repent in that way. Moving forward on our timeline, 604 BC, birth of Laozi, founder of Taoism. The original edition of this work was described in the unnoted catalog Dao Zhang Mu Ru Zhang Zhu as consisting of 6 wands. The work is a biography of Laozi, who was traditionally regarded as the author of Tao Te Ching and the founder of Taoism. The earliest reference to Laozi is found in Shi Ji by Chinese historian Sima Qian. Laozi was often said to be a contemporary of Confucius. Now, Taoism, this is where religion comes into play, and they kind of choose a religion to stick to, and one religion, and worship one God, and there's religions that worship more than one God. Sometimes the confusion comes into play, what religion is right and what religion is wrong, and you kind of just have to follow the path on your own. And just make it your own, because religion really comes from your culture, your ancestors, and what they believe. And it keeps moving on and moving on from decades to decades to present time. And whatever your family believed at that time is most likely what your religion will be and what you will believe at that time. And sometimes children find another way because they believe that their culture isn't the way for them, and they try another culture. So, for instance, a lot of us are Christians and believe in Christianity, but your children might not. They might go more towards the Muslim religion. They might like their values and believe in their traditions more than the Christian traditions, which is okay, because a lot of times people feel that Christians are in fault in some ways. And it's a real big, huge argument, especially the Catholic religion, when it comes to the Catholic Church. The Romans swear they were the first Catholic Church, but in history and documentation proves that the African Cathedral Church was the first Catholic Church ever to be made. And this argument keeps going on till this present day, and until we underline the truth and bring the truth to everyone, this argument will still continue to go on. So moving forward, founder of Buddhism in 563 BC, which is on our timeline, born in the foothills of the Himalayas. Okay, it is a Buddhist manuscript produced in the Beijing style. Now that's something even more interesting to look further in. Buddhism is known to be more of an Indian culture, but it says that it's in the Beijing style, so which means it's Chinese culture. So let's make sure we're aware of exactly where these type of style religions actually started off in, so there will not be any confusion. So Buddhism, in which a sheet has been inserted in both the upper and lower cover, a silk curtain of different colors protects the sheets set in the recess. This type of book cover was developed in Beijing for type 10 manuscripts and is sometimes also found among block print bindings. So this piece of art here this piece of art came from a cover, the book cover that Buddhists use and live by. And they believed in balance, and they believed in worshiping Buddha. Now, in a lot of cultures, this is a no-no. You don't worship other gods or other statues, especially Christians are firm believers that worshiping statues are just forbidden. God forbids it. But in this culture, this is what they believe. How this culture came about in the Beijing Chinese time, there's a lot of men that get curious and want to know more and form their own type of religion. Now, Buddha around this time, he brought a lot of peace. He brought a lot of dualism. It was a sense of bringing the people back to a place to where they can find themselves, find their inner selves. And instead of just embracing that, kind of like, for example, Jesus Christ, we embrace what he did. He came here, he was the Son of God, and he came to bring God's people back to him. And he came to make all of our sins forgiven so that we wouldn't suffer for our sins. Now, through Jesus Christ, we are able to have our sins forgiven as long as we believe in him and follow his ways. And like Buddha was kind of in the same, but he wasn't the Son of God. But he was somebody to lead God's people back to him. In this instance, Buddhists, they took that and ran with it in a certain way, worshipped it, and made Buddha their God, when in all reality, they can just embrace the fact of what he did and how he led it and learn from that and do that on their own time. Moving forward, I know there are a lot of questions coming into play, but I want to kind of shine some light. In 500 BC, caste system established in India. Now there is a very sacred art piece that's illustrated as a manuscript made in southern India in 1837. Consists of 72 colorful hand-painted images of men and women of the various castes and religious and ethnic groups found in Madurai. Now, as you know, the Indian culture, the country of India, they are strong Hindu believers. And Hindu is a big thing for them with dualism and energies and just they're really big on energies and creating great energies and moving forward. And now a lot of gods and goddesses come into play that they worship as well. You just don't want to get confused. Now there's good and there's bad. And going back to Adam and Eve, the wisdom tree of knowledge of good and evil. Now if we know good and evil, a lot of times people will turn evil and try to make it seem as it is good. And that's where the deceit comes into play. Now you have to be careful so you know how to decipher between the two. Because good is good, bad is bad. But there's no in between. So it's kind of something to look out for. God and goddesses in the Christian religions are forbidden. We only believe in one God. And that God will lead us to heaven and earth, or heaven on earth. And this religion, this is all they know. Creating good energy and living in that type of way. And calling on the gods to help them get further into their teachings. And the caste system, that's a way of trading, and that's the way of living, and that's all the way they knew how to live. And a lot of systems were made in other countries and was fairly different. But now we're talking about this world history timeline, artificial evidence, and historical and sacred art pieces that prove that in this time era that this stuff was happening. And this kind of to just recall of how we're repeating this information, and I'm repeating this information to you to recall these sacred artifacts, manuscripts, sacred manuscripts. And when we talk about manuscripts, it gets even deeper because you know there's a lot of secret manuscripts, and it's not secret, it's just unknown. So we've got to be careful of the wording that we use when we're talking about these artifacts. Now, manuscripts, and a lot of people keep these manuscripts close to them, and they're sacred, and they don't want anyone to tamper with them. So, using these manuscripts for your own good or for your own selfish ways will have a negative effect on you. So just when we're talking about manuscripts and we're talking about sacred art pieces to prove historical times in history, just be careful on where you're doing your research and what you come along and know your religion and what you are true to, because all of this stuff is true and all of these energies are true, and you just have to be careful where you're putting your energies to. And to move further on, because I know we're running out of time here, and I kind of wanted to point out a time in an art piece that was sacred to Greek poets and dramatists in 400 BC, birth of Euripides. Now, the Greek text on papyrus, written around 200 BC in Hermopolis, Egypt, has 7 lines of writing containing parts of verses 338 to 344 from the first course of Orestes, composed in 408 BC by the Greek tragedian Euripides. The play re-encounters the story of Orestes, who kills his mother, Clytemnestra, to avenge the death of his father. So at this time, this Greek poet takes this time of Egyptian history and he takes this sacred manuscript and he interprets it into a Greek poem, and he actually makes a play of this just to kind of relive this time. Now, Egyptians, when it comes to war and killing and stuff, like Egyptians really believe in gods and goddesses. And that was why Moses had to come and free the people that were being enslaved at that time to be the slaves of the Egyptians. And that was a success. And then a lot of people were woke to the fact of what freedom really was. And this time, freedom was a little different. And we were free to do certain things. And now this still happens till this day. A lot of children are confused and they don't know which way to go. So they get revenge on their parents. And this is something that you just, if you have children, you just know that you have to guide them in the right direction. Now, in closing, I want to go back to 415 BC here on our timeline. So last one, had to kind of skip through because we're running out of time. First 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, giving final form. Now, the Torah has a lot of controversy. Now, this is what Jewish people use as their Bible, and a lot of the ways written in this Torah was it was a lot of controversy at the time because it's a very harsh way of living and a very strict way of living. But the main purpose of this is Genesis, Exodus, all that is included. So just be careful which Bibles you're reading because there's different forms, different cultures. The Torah is straight from the Jewish. The Hebrew biblical manuscripts. Now this was translated millions of times. You just have to remember when Egypt was invaded by the Frenchmen and how the new Jews changed the Bible into new wording and new ways. And that's why a lot of people just strictly use the Holy Bible, the Christian Bible, because it really outlines the true stories of the Bible and the true ways of Christians. And the Torah is a little more strict and harsh in their wording. So thank you so much for your time. We will go further more into this lesson another day. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and wrap this up. And if there's any questions, feel free to ask. And I will try to answer them as soon as possible. Thank you again. This is Letitia Collins, Historical Lesson Timeline. And I hope you learned a lot today. And may you be blessed and inspired. Goodbye.